Good afternoon. Welcome to the July 26th, 2024 meeting of the Rotary Club of Beavercreek. I'd like to thank our greeters, if they're still out there, Pete Bales and Pete Landrum. Eric Marcus, our ticket master, Beth Handelwitzer for set up program assistants, Pete Bales, Mark Weinstein, and Mike Zwick for the great programs, and Jim Gunville for the website. Danny, are you ready? Next stage, are we close for the invocation?
Well, good afternoon. Would you join me in prayer? Oh, Holy Creator, since we are not conscious enough to fathom your ebb and your flow, help us then to bring our best efforts to what we can know, to love our family and friends, to treat our employees and fellow workers fairly, to seek justice, to help those in need, to live the best that we can be. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Secretary's report, Joe Jenkins.
Alright, so we're at 60% today. We got several guests here. Can you go first? Share your guys.
Yeah.
Let's, they have them.
Holy speak out.
Thanks.
Okay, I have a plethora of guests.
Oh, yeah.
So. Yeah, well, one of them not even listed. So I'll introduce the oldest guest first. I have Steve Noss, who's the district chair for Youth Exchange for District 6670. If any of you have children or grandchildren that you want to get rid of, you turn them over to Steve. He does a great job. Remember the date? Okay. Then I have 4 exchange students. 2 students are inbound students and 2 students are outbound students. That's because they're step students. That means it's not because we adopted them. It's not because they're like half sisters or half brothers. It's because of the short-term exchange program. So what happens, the way this program works is one of our students is matched with a student in another country. They stay at one person's house for a month, and then they stay at the other person's house for a month. So I'll start with Bridget, who goes to Beavercreek. I heard she brought her uncle with her today. And she is gonna stand up and she's gonna introduce herself. She's gonna introduce her match. And she's gonna say a little bit about what she did when she was in Germany. And then Liv is maybe gonna say something to us as well. Hey,
Okay, hi, I'm Bridget. My match is Liv. I stayed in Germany with her for 4.5 weeks, so it was basically the entirety of June. The first week I was there, I went on a family vacation with her and her family to Austria, and we stayed there for a week, and we hiked the mountains, and then we went back to Germany. We visited some cities like Munich. She lives right outside of Nuremberg, so I went to Nuremberg a lot. I went to school with her because her school was still in session. There was one weekend that we spent in Berlin and we saw everything in Berlin. And I got to meet a lot of her friends and just make new relationships with a lot of people. And it was a lot of fun.
Liv's turn. Wow.
Hi, my name is Liv and I'm from Germany. I really enjoyed to be here and meet all the people I can meet or I already meet here. I'm sorry for my English. But yeah, my time here, I've been here for 4 weeks already and I'm gonna stay another 2. So 6 weeks in total. I think that's a great opportunity for me to have this whole experiences. I'm really glad I can experience that. And I have also a little thing for my Rotary Club. One is for this Rotary Club here in Beavercreek, and one is for the one in Dayton because I have 2. I don't know why, but this one I will just give to you, and the other one I will give to you. So yeah, and what we've done already, I mean, we've been through Ohio. We made a little tour to all the cities. And I've seen a lot, and I'm really glad I can experience that. So thank you.
Apologize for her English. Anybody here that can speak German better than that? Or I stand up. So we have also from Beavercreek High School, Carly Campbell. Both her parents are teachers at Beavercreek. Her dad teaches what? Math? Social stuff. Biology. And her mom teaches Spanish. So I have no clue. But so she's going to introduce herself and her education.
Hi, I'm Carly. Moved to Belgium for 4 weeks. It's Manon, and I first got to Belgium and went and watched the Belgium game for the Euros. So that was like one of the first things I did. Then we also visited France and Luxembourg, and I got to try the food. It was really good. My favorite food was the Belgian waffles. But yeah, it was a really fun time there. And like, I met a lot of good friends. They were fun. They were crazy, but they were fun though. So hi, I'm Manon in French, but you can also say Manon in English. I'm from Belgium, and I'm here since a week. Last Friday, I came here with a lot of trouble because of the Microsoft. So yeah, it was a bad time, but now I'm here. And the last week was super cool. Like I saw a lot of things. Everything is different here, and I'm so glad that I can have the experience. And thank you very much for this.
Thank you. Welcome to Beavercreek. Glad you're here. Joe, anyone else?
I got Junior today, and then Jaden had Brown today.
Oh, it's
Sorry, I.
Sergeant at Arms, Chris Hadley. There we go. We moved at least with her.
I'm not walking up here until I hear it clap. Thank you, Don. Good afternoon, Rotarians, exchange students, Beavercreek students, VIP guests, and our speakers today. Today is July 26th, also known as the 207th day of the year. Starting off, we'll go with the birthdays and anniversaries. Coming up this upcoming week, we have Bob DeChoy celebrating a birthday on the 30th, and Deborah Gross celebrating her birthday first. We have no partner birthdays, no wedding anniversaries, but we do have a few member anniversaries. Celebrating 15 years on the 31st, Brian. And then on the first was a big day for the club. We have David Stewart, Alex Zahira, and Jen Jamber all celebrating their anniversaries. 50 for Stewart, 9 for Alex, and 32 for Jim. All right, we'll speed through this day in history to keep on time here. So just a couple cool little things that happened today in history. About 228 years ago, a guy named Benjamin Franklin was appointed to the first U.S. Postmaster General position, which I think is pretty important, how important mail is. Moving on to 1998, Harry Truman ordered the segregation in the U.S. military and federal government to be banned. So that definitely is a good thing as well. Some of us might remember this in 1968, the Jackson 5 signed with Motown Records and went on to make history 2 years later as the first recording act to ever see their first 4 singles reach #1 on the Billboard charts. Those 4 songs, I Want You Back, ABC, The Love You Save, and I'll Be There. All of them are awesome songs. And then lastly, in 1990, President Bush came up with the American with Disabilities Act and turned that into a law. So that was huge because that provided equal access to public services by requiring public ramps for wheelchairs, wider doorways, but also defined disabilities as both physical and mental and not necessarily severe or permanent. Also a big thing there. Fly through some things to celebrate today and this week. Today we have National All or Nothing Day, National Disability Independence, National Get Gnarly. I think this is everyone's favorite, National Talking Elevator Day. Tomorrow, another favorite, National Scotch Day, National Cream Brulee Day, Love is Kind Day, and then Sunday, most appropriate day for this is National Day. And then heading into Monday, we have National Parents Day. All the kids remember Monday, National Parents Day. Also, Monday is National Chicken Wing Day. Tuesday is Climb a Mountain Day, which I don't think we have any here in Ohio, so if we're going to celebrate that, might take a little vacation. Also, kids in the room, Tuesday is National Father-in-Law Day, so if you have one of those, definitely celebrate him. Moving on to Wednesday is National Mutt Day. Those, in my opinion, the best kind of dogs by far. Moving on to Thursday the 1st, we have, again, kids, there's a theme here, Thursday, Respect for Parents Day. It is also National IPA Day and International Beer Day. So if your parents or if your kids are grown, out to college, moved away, you got two other things you can celebrate on Parents Day responsibly. So we're moving month here soon. August is known to be National Dog. This one I will not be celebrating because I am bald by choice, but it's National Hair Loss Awareness Day. It is also National Romance Awareness Month. For those who want to partake in that, I will highly recommend the book, The 5 Love Languages. If you have not read that, that is a masterpiece of a book when it comes to just dealing with people, whether they're kids, significant others, or just people. We also have next month, Black Business Month. We have Children's Eye Health and Safety Month. Also National Eye Exam Month. Then it gets better. We got National Happiness Happens Month, which is also National Golf Month. And then to take things kind of downhill in a good way, we have National Back to School Month. One thing us parents are never, ever ready for, no matter how many times we do it. And next month is also get ready for kindergarten. Now, if you are not aware, we do have among us baseball greatness who is adored by all of it. So I thought I would drop some crazy facts about another one of baseball greats who his greatness has mixed reviews. So a gentleman by the name of Barry Bonds has a ton of wild stats and records, but some of these here are my absolute favorite. Right now, Barry Bonds still has the most career intentional walks, 88. That number the Tampa Bay Rays franchise has as a whole for their whole entire existence. That will probably change this year, though, so let's not get too excited. But he also has more intentional walks than the number of games played by the Miami Marlins or the Arizona Diamondbacks. And to kind of put this into perspective, the second place winner, I guess, of most intentional walks is Albert Pujols with 316. So I don't think no one's catching the intentional walk record anytime soon. To put this into further perspective about how great of a player he was, Barry Bonds was intentionally walked 41 times with the bases empty. Even crazier, May 28, 1998, bases loaded, 2 outs. The Arizona Diamondbacks intentionally walked Barry Bonds to bring in the winning run. So if you think about that, Hall of Famers get out 70% of the time to go up to bat. They walked Barry Bonds and let his team win. Some other fun fact, and that's the only known existence or instance of a walk-off intentional walk in Major League Baseball. Going on, Barry Bonds is the only member of the 500-500 club, so it's 500 home runs, 500 stolen bases. To put that, how incredible that is into perspective, there is nobody in the 400-400 club. He is also one of 4 players to ever reach the 40-40 club in a season. And this is my absolute favorite. If you take away all of his stats from the 7 seasons he won MVP, He would have 440 home runs, 359 stolen bases, which no other player has a higher combined total of those two. So, for today's fines, if you still think Pete Rose should be banned from the Hall of Fame, that's $1. If you do not get tickets to the Rotary Night at Dayton Dragons game this 10th or August 10th, that's $1. If you've never been to a Rotary Night at Dayton Dragons game, that's $2. If you're late, $1, not wearing your badge, $1. And if you don't have a happy butt for today, that's $1. Don?
Thank you, Chris. I'm glad to see the fines keep coming.
I'll say,
We'll also need the ticket. Rush. You went out there happy about something, you want to share it with us?
I'll do it. So this weekend is Comfort Fest downtown. That's, I know I'll be celebrating Scott Day. But I want to put in a shameless plug for my girls. They're dancing Comfort Academy of Irish Dance with tonight, tomorrow night, and Sunday nights. Tonight at 7, tomorrow at 4:10, and Sunday at 2:00.
Wow. Very good. Eric, you had something?
Happy buck, Seth go run off seats at my guest table, all my kids and their chair.
Anyone else? Happy bucks.
Give happy $3. One, baseball season for our son is over. 75 games in 3 months is a lot. I'm happy also, secondly, that our daughter's softball season is over. Around 60 games in 2 months. So again, kind of feel like the Dragons. I am happy to report though, we never, ever, ever walked the bases, intentionally walked somebody with the bases. And thirdly, my wife started her new job as an assistant principal at Belmont yesterday. So
Very good. Pete. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry.
That's all right. So I've got a happy buck. My daughter Kara, she's gonna be a freshman this year at Beavercreek High School, so she started color guard and band camp a couple weeks ago. This week was band camp all week long. And at the end of last week, during their color guard routine, she slipped and fell and she broke her arm and her leg. It turned into happy. So this week we followed up and the doctor did some more tests. They found that her leg was just a tiny little fracture, so she got her boot off and now it's in just like a brace, but she's still got a broken arm, so she's what they call air flagging with her little flag. She didn't know how to flag, she just out it long. And so, funny. And so does she. She's a good spirit.
I've got a few happy bucks. Last month, my third grandson graduated from Beavercreek High School. And I took him to Hawaii and he got scared to death on a helicopter ride around Oahu. I mean, he didn't tell me till he landed, but because we had open doors, you know, he's just, so when the guy told him the helicopter, he's looking straight down at the waterfall and flying right at the mountains, backing up. And he really enjoyed it, but he said he'll never do it again.
Very good.
It's more of an informational buck. Next week is the Greene County Fair, so it starts Sunday night with the calf scramble, which is really fun to watch. You start out with some little kids and then some teenagers, I think in the 16, 17 range. And they try to catch a calf, and if they catch it, they get to use it in their project for the next year. So it's fun to watch them chasing the calves because the calves don't want to be caught. After them. And then the actual fair itself runs Sunday through Saturday or Monday through Saturday, and it's always a good time, always a hot time. It's great for the kids.
Do they still do the first responders pig wrangling?
Wednesday, I believe, Wednesday evening.
It's always fun to watch. It's just trying to watch some of these guys move pigs. It's really interesting. Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, I've got a happy buck. Yesterday was the 20th green giving golf outing. We had 144 players. We had a beautiful day. Nice little breeze to keep you cool out there and not, unbearable temperatures. So anyhow, it was a good time. Anybody that took part, thank you, and come back next year.
Very good. Anyone else? All right, take it going. This is for our Christmas baskets. Half the proceeds go to our Christmas basket program. And the other half goes to you unless you decide to donate it back. Case number is 168. 942.
Was it again?
168 942. We can't do that. Chris, we'll clean the hearts out before you show us again.
Right. I guess it's brutal. Don't hold Joker. Very good time.
Don't play at ours either.
Yeah, right. Oh, progress.
Art rooms, very good. All right, any announcements for the club? Here that we need to be aware of. Very good. Well, Pete's already here. Introduce our speaker.
Thank you, Don. Mike Zwick was gonna introduce Tom, and he sent me an email yesterday, and so we were kind of going back and forth, exchanging emails, and I'm pretty sure Google was listening because as soon as I was getting ready to kind of jot down some notes about Tom, and I changed over to my Instagram. And the first thing I saw on Instagram was a pop-up from the dugout report. And it said, Reds high A minor A team is outdrawing the A's in attendance. Oh, I thought, well, I'm gonna copy that and use it as a part of this introduction because it's crazy that Google's listening all the time, but it's also very appropriate. So Tom Nichols is the Director of Media Relations and Broadcaster for the Dayton. He's held the position since 2007, has been an announcer for the minor league baseball since 1988. Nichols had an impressive career, having called over 4,000 baseball games during his time with the Dragons. His dedication to the team and extensive experience makes him a very valuable asset in the world of baseball broadcasting. So please welcome Tom Nichols.
Thank you, Pete. Thank you. I don't know, a lot of times you go to do speeches to clubs and they ask you to write your own intro and people know that, so you don't want to sound, I didn't write that one, so I don't know where you came up with that one, but so maybe off our website. But thanks for having me today. I'll always be here. Mike Zwick invites me, I think, every year. So this is one of the few clubs that I come to. And even though I only see you once a year, I still remember a lot of you. Eric is a Dragon season ticket holder and has been how many years? Forever? From the very start. Okay. Gee. And he's a full season ticket holder, 66 game package. So I know many of you, thanks to Mike Zwick for inviting me today. And by the way, I want to mention, Eric, just a little Dragons trivia that connects with your guest today. There's, to my knowledge, and I believe this was correct a few years ago, I think it's still correct. There's only been one player in the history of baseball that was raised in Germany and made it to the major leagues. And there have been a few born in Germany. Maybe they were there because their father was there in the military, something along those lines. But there's only been one who spent his whole life in Germany. And he actually played for the Dragons before he played for the Reds. His name was Donald Lutz. In fact, Donald Lutz, who played for us in 2011, I still remember the night. He is the only player in Dragons history to ever have hit. And you're saying, I have no idea what that means, hit for the cycle. That means he had and you still may not know what it means, I'll explain it. It means he had a single, double, triple, and home run all in the same game. It's only happened once in Dragons history, and it was the German-born and raised Donald Lutz. He actually did it in reverse order: homer, triple, double, single, and he had all four hits by the end of the inning. It was the most amazing single game performance I've ever seen. He was a really good guy, very popular with his teammates, always had a smile on his face. He was so happy when he got to the Reds and played in the major leagues. But when he got there, he did have some injuries that slowed him down some, and he did not have a long career, but he did get there. The only German-raised player ever made the major leagues actually played here in Dayton for the Dayton Dragons. Anyway, my role for the Dragons is as broadcaster and director of media relations. So I have a sort of a split role. On the one hand, I broadcast every single game, home and road, on radio and or television. We do every game on radio, home and road, WONE 980 AM. You can also get us on your phone, iPad, internet, laptop, any place else. We televise 15 games a season on the Dayton CW. We had been for many years televising 25 games a year. Major League Baseball required us to cut that number. They're trying to move everyone from watching the games on TV to buying their internet package, streaming package. So they made us cut back this year to 15 TV games on the CW. The next one, by the way, is this Saturday night. If you're interested in tuning in to see us play, that's my job as well. And then on the other side of the coin, I'm the team's director of media relations, which means it's my job to help the team get media coverage, whether it's in the Dayton Daily News or one of the local TV stations wants to do an interview with a player, I set that up. Even if it's a player who has a hometown newspaper, let's say we get a player from Boise, Idaho, and the newspaper in Boise, Idaho wants to do a story to update their readers on the player's progress. I would send them photos of the player, set up the interview, make sure the player's willing to do it, make sure he actually does it, all those things, and that's part of my job as well. Now, I've been in minor league baseball right out of college in 1988. Now, I was one of those kids. Think about this from your own perspective. You could be on my side of this or the opposite side, which would have been my younger brother. And the students in the room also can think about this from your side. So my brother graduated college, had a degree, still had absolutely no idea what he wanted to do with his life. Some of you might say, well, that's the same way I was. Or you might have been the opposite like myself. I was in the 4th grade and knew what I was going to do. I was a big fan of the Big Red Machine in the 1970s with Johnny Bench, Pete Rose, Joe Morgan, Sparky Anderson, and I listened to Marty and Joe on WLW, and I said, that's what I'm going to do someday. I was 4th grade saying, that's what I'm going to do, and I did not ever stray from that goal at any time, and that's what I ended up doing. So now I called over 4,000 minor league games, 1 major league game, and that was the goal I strive for and try to reach. And again, you can think about where you might have been. Were you one of those kids that knew what you wanted to do early in life, or were you one like my brother? Now, I want to say this: my brother ended up making a lot more money than I did, so that's the way it worked out. He didn't know what he wanted to do, but once he found it, it was good for him. So in my case, I graduated from Ball State University in my hometown of Muncie, Indiana, and it was time to look for a way to get into minor league baseball as a broadcaster. And I remember I called the broadcaster for the closest team, which was the Indianapolis Indians. And I called him to ask just a question: how do I get into this? And, I was a shy kid, even coming out of college. That was a hard thing for me to do. In those days, we're talking 1988, there were no cell phones. So you're investing in a long distance call, which is about 30 cents a minute. And I'm calling the guy on the phone I don't know. A shy kid, hard for me to do. You guys can think about that. Sometimes one phone call can change your life. If I've made that call, who knows, maybe I've gone the direction my brother did and made a lot more money. I don't know. What did it become? Probably a baseball broadcaster. So I called him and I said, I'd like to get involved in baseball as a broadcaster, and I'm not sure exactly how I go about getting with a team. And he said, well, it was like February of 1988. He said, well, the season starts in 2 months. You're a little bit late for this year. However, we do have a part-time opening with the Indianapolis Indians. Their main broadcaster was the guy I called. He was employed by the team. He was full-time. He did like what I do. He went to every game, home and road. That was his full-time job, just like the Dragons is for me. But they had a second guy whose full-time job was as a musician with the Indianapolis Symphony Orchestra. And he was very talented, made a lot of money doing that. But they had performances on the weekends when the team was at home, so he couldn't do the broadcasting of the Indianapolis Indians games on those nights. So they needed a third guy to come in and do those games. So he said, tell you what, send me your tape. Now, in 1988, so in 2024, I would send a link via email to a website page, which is what the young people in the audience would probably think about would be the easiest way to get an audio sample to someone in Indianapolis. In 1988, is that the way we did it? No. So I did not send him a link. I did not send him a flash drive. I did not send him even a CD. In 1988, what did I send him? I sent him a cassette tape that he had to pump into a cassette player. You guys have any idea what a cassette tape is? Okay, so listen. Beginning of a baseball broadcast I'd done while I was in college, and he listened to it and he said, I'll tell you what, we'll bring you in for the first game, and I'm not making any promises. And I did the first game, and at the end of the game, we've got some more games for you. So he gave me about 24 more games, and that was one of the happiest moments of my career because I knew I had my foot in the door. Sometimes, you know, in any job, think back about your own. The first job in your field is always the hardest to get because you don't have the experience. You got nothing. You're just going on faith here. You're trying to convince someone you can do the job, and you don't have the experience or anything on your resume. Young folks, it's a lot easier from there. That first one is hard to get, especially when there's competition. But that's my role with Dayton Dragons. That's how I got in the business. And we'll take you through a little presentation. We're in our 24th year of Dayton Dragons baseball. And it is not advanced.
Say out there, boy.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, it is not doing anything either. There we go. Well, 1, 2, 3. We finished. If you were to ask an employee in minor league baseball, anywhere you want to go in the United States, and tell them I'm from Dayton, Ohio, and I've been to a Dayton Dragons game, they would say, that's that team with that long sellout streak and the big attendance numbers. We finished last year #2 in the nation in attendance per game. There's 120 minor league teams nationally. We finished #2 last year. And right now we are #2 this year, behind of all teams, the Indianapolis Indians, my first team. And they are ahead of us by a couple of hundred per game on average. So that's been our strength throughout our history is attendance. And I'll get back in a minute to why I think we have had such good attendance numbers. We have led our level, which is single A, for every season of our existence. And we have led all teams below the triple A level for 17 straight years. Now, if that terminology I'm using is not anything you're familiar with, minor league baseball basically is split into 5 levels. The youngest players play what is called A level of baseball. Then you go to single A. Then you go to what is called high A, which is what we are now classifying in Dayton as high A or high single A. Then you go to double A, then you go to triple A. Typically, the larger the market, the higher the classification, and those players are closest to the major leagues. So we have finished in the top 10 in all the minors every year. But in the last 17 years, we've never had anyone below the triple A level finish ahead of us in attendance. Triple A teams oftentimes are playing in larger ballparks and big markets. and maybe in some cases, they have major league teams in other sports. Indianapolis would be an example. They got Colts Pacers, so it's a big market, big ballpark. I think their ballpark holds about 13,000. You've got Columbus Clippers, you've got the Nashville Sounds. These are in larger markets in many cases. But we've done quite well in Dayton with attendance. So we'll get back to that in a minute, because I think the credit goes to our fan base in many respects. Okay, this is the top 5 in sports history of most consecutive sold-out days. He broke the record in 2011, and coincidentally, the night we had the celebration at Dayer Ballpark, that time it was known by a different name, but we still say it was called Dayer Ballpark because they're our partner. That night we had a celebration that we broke the record. We had Magic Johnson, Archie Griffin on hand. They were actually 2 part owners of the team at that time. They're not anymore. We had George Foster of the Reds there that night. And that was actually, believe it or not, that was the night Donna was hit with a cycle. July of 2011, it's never happened before or since then. The German-born player, German race player, who held the record. At that time, the record was held by the Portland Trailblazers. It was 814, and we hit number 815 that night, and kept that sellout streak going, and it still to this day is continuing. We paused it during the pandemic because there was a rule that you could only have 30% capacity. So that year was a pause for the streak. For the next year, we picked it back up. It's mostly season tickets, quite honestly. We sell out most of our games before the season even begins, but we do have a few scattered tickets here and there. If you were to come to the box office tonight and say, I need 4 tickets together, you probably not have too much luck with that. But we do have some tickets, a small number available at the gate for each game. Okay. These are former Dragons players. We're now up to 145 Dragons players to make the major leagues. Our most famous is Joey Votto, who will go to the Hall of Fame someday. And we've had Jay Bruce and Homer Bailey and Todd Frazier and many others. My favorite and most exciting Dragons player to watch ever was a young man we had. I've given this speech too many times to the speech earlier, I think. But we had a player. It's same year as Donald West played for us. In fact, 2011. I met him in the dugout before the first game. I sit down next to him and I said, Billy, I've heard that you're supposed to be pretty fast, but quite honestly, I've heard stuff like that so many times. There's always a legend surrounding some player coming out of spring training every year. And that year, we had this young player. At that time, believe it or not, he was a shortstop. And the legend surrounding him was that in the spring of that year in Arizona, they were having spring training like the Reds do in Arizona. There had been a fly ball hit to left field, and the left fielder lost the ball in the Arizona sun. And he was just kind of standing out there looking up, trying to find the ball in the sun, and he never did locate the ball. And he kept drifting back to get it. And the shortstop, who was Billy Hamilton, went racing out from shortstop and gets to the edge of the warning track, just a few steps from the fence, and reaches out and snags it. And that was the legend of Billy Hamilton. He ran all the way from the shortstop position to the warning track in left field to catch a fly ball, which sounds like something only Superman could do. And anyway, I sit down with him and I said, do you have a goal for stolen bases in a season? And he said, I do, actually. I said, what is it? And he said, well, he had a mathematical formula. He had the number of stolen bases he had the year before, and the number of games they played was exactly the number we play in Dayton. So he just doubled his total the year before. Now, I said, okay, so what's your goal? He said, 96. Well, at that time, our club record, Eric, I don't know if you saw this, but last night they actually played this whole video on the video board at the game. But the club record at that time for a Dayton Dragons player for stolen bases in a season was 37. And he just told me his goal was 96. So when he told me that, my immediate reaction, again, I've heard all these legendary stories too many times. Usually they're exaggerated beyond anything you can imagine. And when he told me 96 was his goal, I said, okay, whatever. So by the end of May, he had broken the club record. We got to a game in early August, and the All-Star ballot for the Midwest League had come out that day, and it was sitting on the manager's desk in his office. Our manager was a guy named Delino DeShields at that time. And he was looking at his All-Star ballot and trying to decide who he was going to vote for the league MVP, the most valuable player in the league. And I said, Delino, you know, he might not have the numbers, but the player that has had the biggest impact on our team this year is Billy Hamilton. And that night happened to be the first night in a row that he led the game with a hit, stole second base on the very first pitch, and stole third base on the second pitch. So 2 pitches into the second batter of the game, he was standing on third base. The last time he did it, they actually put a stop to it. They gave up the whole right side of the infield to do it, but they had the second baseman go over to the second base bag and hold him on like the first baseman, so he couldn't lead off far enough to steal third. And the whole right side of the infield was wide open, so our hitter could hit the ball through. That's the impact he had on our team. That was Billy Hamilton, the most exciting player ever played for the Dayton Dragons. This is what we call injury rehab assignments. We had many current Reds players come back and play for the Dragons. They're always fun for the fans because they're names that people know. They're not anonymous minor leaguers that haven't really established themselves yet. They're current major league players that everybody knows. And they come back and they play for us. It doesn't happen anywhere in sports except baseball. I mean, if Ezekiel Elliott with the Cowboys had a hamstring injury and missed a month and was ready to go back and play again, he wouldn't go back and play for the Buckeyes. He'd go back to the Cowboys. So in baseball, a player goes back and plays in the minor leagues again for some period of time to get his timing back and feel like he's warming up out there in the field. But these are 2 of our most famous, Brandon Phillips and Aroldis Chapman. Okay, this is one of my favorite slides in our presentation, because Dayton Dragons baseball, for those in the audience who were not big baseball fans like Eric and myself, we are fans of the game. We want the Dragons to win. We want to see our players reach the major leagues, but not everyone takes it quite that seriously. And you very well may be someone who doesn't. And that's okay, because our goal is for the Dayton Dragons, whether you're a big baseball fan or you don't even care, we want you to have a great time in the ballpark with your friends, neighbors, community members, and so forth. So that you might go home that night and the next day someone says, hey, what'd you do last night? And you said, oh, I went to a Dayton Dragons game. Oh, really? Who won? I have no idea, but I still had a great time. That's the goal, okay? So we do all these sing-alongs and skits and contests. Baseball is a perfect sport for it because every 7 minutes roughly, 3 outs are in the books. The team that's batting goes out in the field. The team that's in the field comes into bat. The pitcher gets 8 warm-up pitches. There's 90 seconds between innings. When I'm announcing the game on radio or TV, I take a commercial break. But the fans of the audience can't take a commercial break. So it gives us 90 seconds to do something on the field with our mascots, Heater and Jim, or these superheroes you see in the upper right, or the banana race there in the middle. The bottom center is always my favorite. If you have young children, you would identify, or you got grandchildren, we call it the toddler race. We set up a little track about from here to back, and moms on one end, toddlers on the other. The best ones are the ones that can crawl pretty well, that can't really walk. And they have their first career race out there in front of all the fans at the ballpark. And usually one of the 3 will jump ahead and take the lead, be just a couple arms lengths away from mom. And suddenly, what happens with a toddler? Something shiny just caught his or her eye, or he starts interacting with the other toddlers, and the fans are going, no, you're going the wrong way. And eventually, one of the 3 will get to mom. It'll get real loud in the ballpark. He won't know why, but his mom can explain to him someday, you got your first career standing ovation from 8,000 fans at a Dayton Dragons game. And that's Dragons baseball for you right there. We do as much as we can to make it a Disney type of atmosphere. We do a lot of community events. We're very involved with the military, what we call Hometown Heroes Nights. We do events called Home for Life, which allows a young child who's battled a serious illness or medical condition to be honored in front of everyone and take a lap around the bases, literally in the middle of the game. We do school programs called MVP programs. We honor a veteran every night of the ball game. We're very, very involved in the community. And that's part of what we do and what we strive to achieve. But really, family fun is what it's all about at Dragons Baseball. I think our organizers, some of whom are still with us to this day, but our initial organizers when the team came to town in the year 2000, they understood that our target market really cannot be people like me, which would be baseball fans. It needs to be families and kids. And that's what we've really been able to strive through over the years. And that's why I think this is a perfect market for that, because it's a family market. And the fact that we've got our Major League Parent Club an hour down the road and our players are there. I mean, you look at the Reds lineup right now, and you see a whole team of Dayton Dragons. You see Ellie De La Cruz, who played for us in 2022. And you see TJ Friedel play for us. You see guys all over the field, Jonathan India, Hunter Green. These guys all played for the Dragons. A couple of weeks ago, the Reds had a rookie come up in the minor leagues and have one of the greatest first weeks a rookie has ever had in baseball history. His name is Reese Hines. He was our right fielder just 2 years ago. Now he's with the Reds. So all these things work to our advantage, but really it comes down to the fact that this is a great family market and baseball is a family sport. And that's what's made Dayton Dragons baseball so impressive. Before I get to the end here, we'll take some questions, but I want to take you through the process. This will be just maybe a little educational for some of you who don't know how we get our players or how a player goes from the minor leagues to the major leagues. So we'll begin the process at the beginning. How do the Dragons get our players? Do we just round up a bunch of the best amateur players around the Miami Valley area and invite them out to try out? No, of course not. That's not the way it works. The Reds have about 20 full-time scouts, each of whom is given a territory to cover. Now, years ago, when the Reds sort of hit a low mark, the owner at that time was a lady by the name of Marge Schott, and she trimmed down their scouting staff to almost nothing. And she never caught on to the idea of how important the scouts are to the organization. She made a famous statement. This is not made up. It sounds made up, but it's true. She said, "Why do we need scouts? All they do is sit around and watch baseball." And that's true, but that's how you find your players. So the Reds have about 20 scouts. Each has a territory to cover. So the scout, for example, that would cover this area might have Ohio, Michigan, and Indiana. So throughout the spring baseball season, every night he is going to be at a game somewhere, whether it's Ohio State or Kent State or Notre Dame or the University of Michigan or Beavercreek High School. There were actually 2 players from CJ drafted this year in the draft, which is only a week ago, by the way. So that is the scout's job. He is going to get out there and form an opinion on every player that they feel like has a chance to someday be a major leaguer. He's going to file a report back to Cincinnati with a grade every player. The Reds are going to develop this huge database of players. And when the draft comes in July, and again, it was only about a week ago, they get 20 selections. They pick the 20 best players that they have scouting reports on. And now all the teams are scouting the same players. So it's just a question of your scouts have to do their job well. They have to know the difference between a guy who's maybe good in college, but his skills won't translate very well when he starts facing pitchers throwing 97 miles an hour. That's part of the job. So every July there's a draft. 20 players enter the Reds farm system every year through that draft. They would initially go to, again, what we call ball out in Arizona. You see out in Arizona there a little Reds logo. That's the first level that you would come to if you were drafted and signed on the Reds. you would go to rookie ball and play a season there. The second step you would take up the ladder would be to go to Daytona Beach, Florida, and play with the Daytona Tortugas, Spanish for turtle, and play a season there. That's called single A. If you do well there, you would move on to Dayton, Ohio, high A, and play for the Dayton Dragons. So now third level up, midway through the process. If you do well in Dayton, you would go on to double A and play for the team in Chattanooga, Tennessee. It's called Chattanooga Lookouts. It's next to Lookout Mountain, and that's the team there, double A team. And from there, you would go to triple A, the Louisville Bats in Louisville, Kentucky, called the Bats because they make the bats there at the Little Slugger Bat Factory. And then if you do well in AAA, you would go to the major leagues. Now, only about 10% of all players will make it all the way up to the top. About 10% of guys who are drafted will ever make it to the major leagues. So if you look at our team, our percentage will be a little higher because we're already halfway up the chain. Some players will never even get to Dayton. And by the time you get here, you've already passed through 2 teams. But you look at our team, we're going to have on average maybe 6, 7 guys who are going to go to the major leagues and play for the Reds someday. So that's the way the whole process works. This is our league. It's called the Midwest League of Professional Baseball. You see the logos. It's Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Iowa, Wisconsin, and Michigan. So that's Midwest League Baseball. That's the Dayton Dragons. We've got a few minutes for any questions anyone might have about anything I've covered today or didn't cover as well as you would have liked. Yes, sir?
Was the one major league game announced?
Okay, in 2018, I had done my 4,000th game that season, late in the year, and the Reds invited me to come down and do the play-by-play with Marty Brenneman and Jeff Brantley for a game between the Reds and the Brewers at Great American Ballpark in Cincinnati. And when they first told me, actually our Dragons front office, an email went out and said there's an emergency staff meeting today. I didn't have any idea what it was about. And they had a staff meeting and they gave me this letter to read in front of everyone, all of our other staff. We've got about 40 full-time staff members and they're in that room. And I read the letter and it said, you're invited to come out and do a game with the Reds. And my initial thought was, they're just going to have me come on for a minute and be interviewed and talk about, Dragons baseball. And I do interviews all the time on radio, WLW, it'll be like that, only be during the game. And they said, no, you're actually be the one announcing the game. The other announcers are going to put the game in your hands. And so I was able to do that. So it got, actually, the New York Times did a neat story on it, because here's this guy that's been riding buses in the minor leagues for 30 years, finally gets his chance to do a major league game. It was kind of like if you've seen the baseball movie, Field of Dreams, there's a character called Moonlight Graham in that movie, and he's a true actual person that existed. He played in one game and never got the bat. In the movie, he later becomes a doctor and has this key role in the movie. And that happened. That was real life. That truly happened. And so I guess I'm the Moonlight Graham of minor league baseball. I got the one game. That would be it. It was a great night for my family. My parents loved it. And my mom listened to every single game for 20 years. And so that was, for me, that was the best thing about it, was my parents who put all that time into me, got to listen to me do a major league game. Yes, sir.
Tell me, why did it take so long for Dayton to get involved?
Main question, a very good answer. She did not do anything to stop it. In fact, she moved it. Here's the reason. There's a very clear reason. Major League Baseball has a rule. They have territorial restrictions for every major league team to keep someone from poaching their territory, to keep someone from coming in and setting up and taking fans away for the big league team. It's like a 12-county area surrounding the big league ballpark. So for 50 years, no one was allowed to come to Dayton. Finally, some agreements were made to allow the city of Dayton and the market to have a team under the condition that it would always be a Reds farm club. That was the condition. So other teams for a long time, it was your agreement was 2 years. So at the end of 2 years, let's say you were a Chicago Cubs farm club. At the end of 2 years, you could say to the Cubs, hey, if you don't send us better players, we're gonna look for somebody else. Well, we didn't have that leverage. And so they could send us whoever they wanted. And even though we had a great ballpark, great market, great place for the players, we didn't have any of that leverage after we got a team. And we were just at the mercy of whatever they wanted to send us. And some years it was good and some it wasn't so good. But the fans were always there for us. So that's the reason. For 50 years, it was prohibited by Major League Baseball because of their territorial rule related to Montgomery County. All right. Okay, yes, I'll get you over here.
The scoreboard has changed over the years, it's grown. Has anyone, or maybe multiple players, ever hit the ball over the scoreboard?
I think it's happened once. That's a good question. We've had some people hit homers off the, next time you're in the game, look up at the video board, which is huge. And then there's like a dragon's head above it. We've had some guys hit that dragon's head. I think there's been one ball hit over the scoreboard. And the reason I can't say is those balls are so high, it's hard to follow the ball once it sort of leaves the area and you're trying to look out there, and then even on the replay, you're trying to find the ball and see exactly where it went. So we think it's happened once where somebody hit one completely over all of that.
And then, next to Joey Votto,
Yeah.
who was the best offensive player that ever played in your opinion?
Well, it depends on whether you want to define that by best player, eventually what he did in the major leagues, or what he did in.
With regard to Reds affiliates, and lots of business.
Yeah, I mean, Albert Pujols, the name that was mentioned in your Sergeant of Arms report, played in the Midwest League against the Dragons, and he became one of the greatest players in baseball history. The best Dragons player, probably aside from Votto, in terms of what he did later, I have to say would be Jay Bruce. That would be probably Ellie De La Cruz, who's now with the Reds, their shortstop, is a truly special talent. He might surpass all those guys someday. But there have also been many other, again, opposing players who come in. And the thing is, you never know. There are certain guys who, when they're with us, they stand out. We had, for example, Hunter Green played for the Dragons. By the time Hunter Green played for the Dragons, he'd already been on the cover of Sports Illustrated as a high school player. He was throwing the ball 102 miles an hour as an 18-year-old playing for the Dragons. So we can see easily enough that player has maybe a bright future. But sometimes they're late bloomers. It's like anything else in life. Some people pick up things later, and you'll see guys who were just average players with us and go on and really, it clicks a little bit later for them. And you'll see the potential maybe, but it just takes a little longer. Yes?
Yeah, Joey Votto didn't have a great start at the Dragons.
That's true. He actually repeated. He came back after 1 year, repeated the same level the next year, which is not a good thing for a player. But that's what happened in his case. He came back his second year, was much better the second year. This would have been 2003 and 2004, I believe. And much better the second year. Okay, Beth, you had one.
Just a real quick question.
Yeah.
Dragon.
I think it was the alliteration and think back again, the vision they had was we're going to do something for kids and the mascot potential there, the sound of the team. I like the name. I'm not a big fan. In this day and age, it's all about the dollar bill. So you get all these new teams that come along now, and they want to sell merchandise. So they want to pick something that's really outlandish. I'll give you a couple of examples. There are some teams in minor league baseball that picked their name just because of one reason. They thought people would buy a hat or a t-shirt. The Montgomery Biscuits. Would you name a team the Biscuits? I wouldn't. How about the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp? How about the New Orleans Baby Cakes? Would you name teams these kind of names? I wouldn't do that. I like our name. I think that's it. Yeah. Well, next question. Yep.
In all the games that you broadcast, what was one of the toughest names that you had to work on to pronounce?
So I've had a couple. I just struggled the whole series. But we had a player 2 years ago, a Hawaiian player, And if it's a name that is said in a way that, and you folks from Europe can relate to this, in a way that we don't really use that type of linguistics. There are plenty of sounds in other languages that we don't really say in English. And you got to change your whole way of saying a word. We got a few of those. We got a player right now from the Netherlands, and his first name is Arij, and he told me how to pronounce it, and I said, I don't think I can say that. And he said, well, that's what I want it said. So I said, I'll try. And his first name was, I tried for a while to roll the R. It was like, Alray. And I just couldn't do it. So I finally said, I'm just going to say array. That's the way we're going to translate it. And I hope it's good enough. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Sean. As our custom, we always get a book signed with, and he signed this already. It's going into the Green County Library. It's called Out of the Park. That's it. It's pretty good. So we'll put that there. It's a perfect one. Next week's meeting, we have John Hardy, who is the greatest coaching. And our greeters next week are Jim Rudd and Dave Brandenburg. Also keep your eye on beavercreekrotary.com and the Facebook for upcoming events. Anything else for the good of the club?
David.
Sure, I'm Joel. Stand for the pledge of allegiance, please. Great. I pledge allegiance to you, to your lives. To public course. Ready, there, and hold. Thank you all very much. Have a great weekend. You see everybody. Everybody see everybody. Thank you.
Did it earlier, right?
I do some. I didn't have it with me. I love my girlfriend. I kept it down. How about this? Hey, it's good. Yeah, and thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Laurie.